Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. Today is New Year's Eve, so that means I'm doing my top 10 reads of this year. I read over 60 books and about 25 volumes of manga, but I'm not including manga today. But these are just my top 10 books that I've read this year. And right off the bat, we're starting with an 8.5 out of 10. So we're starting really high in terms of the rating in my scale. And number 10 is going to be Jenny Wetz's Curse of the Mistwraith. If you know anything about the Wars of Light and Darkness, or Wars of Light and Shadow, you'll know that this is a very heavily prose book. It is probably the best prose I've ever read outside of like Gene Wolfe and Tolkien, and I really love the characters in this one. It's very complicated. I need to sort of reread it. I've only read the first three books, and this is definitely my favorite one because this is the one that I understood the most. The magic system's awesome, or not really magic system, but magic is really awesome. I really love the characters. I love the settings. I also really love the emotional moments because there's a lot of that. Jenny West's prose is very beautiful. She just has a really musical element to her writing, which I really, really enjoy. And it's just really awesome. And I really want to enjoy the series more, but there's so much happening and so many things that I don't understand that I need to reread the first, maybe. I think I'm just going to continue the series, but I think at some point I'm going to have to go back and reread it to make sure that I have all the information that I need. So that's number 10. And number 9 is going to be James S.A. Corey's Tiamat's Wrath, which is book 8 of The Expanse. This one was just awesome. I think I gave this one 8.5 as well. Maybe a 9, I can't remember. But this one is just very emotional. It had a lot of really great emotional moments because this is the final trilogy of The Expanse, which takes place about 30 to 40 years after the 6th book. So book 7, 8, 9 are 30 years later. And this is something that I really wish the show had covered because this is some of the best of The Expanse, is book 8. And I really love what the characters did in this one. There were a lot of shocking reveals, a lot of shocking moments that I was going back and forth on whether I enjoyed it or not. But at the end of the day, I think I did settle with that. This is one of my favorite Expanse books outside of the original 4 books. So books 1 to 4, I think, are all 8.5 to 9 out of 10. And this one's the only one that even reached that level. So if you love The Expanse, definitely continue to the sequels because it's just awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. And it goes back to what I loved about the first few books, which is exploring the proto-molecule and all of the sci-fi stuff, because most of The Expanse is political. I'm fine with that, but I think what makes The Expanse is having that sort of layer of sci-fi lingering over the politics. And the later books really abandoned the sci-fi, so I was happy to see that come back for this book. And all the POVs are awesome. There was really no POV that I had any issues with. So that's number 9. Number 8 is going to be The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is probably the most emotional book that I read this year, aside from my number 2, which I'll get into soon. But this one's just awesome. It's book 2 of the Bloodsworn trilogy. So it's sort of like Viking fantasy. There's a lot of gods. If you're a Malazan fan, this definitely will scratch the itch for you, because I love Malazan. It's one of my favorite series of all time. But this series is just so awesome. I love the main character of Orca and exploring her sort of emotions and exploring her story arc and the character arc. It's just fantastic. I love John Gwynne's writing, and it definitely scratches the itch as a Malazan reader because I haven't really had many books that reminded me of Malazan for quite a while. I would say that series and Philip Chase's series is what has reminded me the most of Malazan of recent time. But it's just fantastic. If you haven't read the Bloodsworn trilogy, I highly recommend it. If you're someone who doesn't read fantasy, I think it's a fantastic starting point to the fantasy genre. It has everything that I love about fantasy. So the next one is actually going to be an indie book, and this was written by my friend Colin Mostello from Stella Reads. This is Lethal Circuit. This is number, I think, 7. Yeah, number 7. And this is a fantastic short story. It's about almost exactly 200 pages, and it's self-published, so you're supporting someone who has put a lot of time and effort, and there's a lot of talent behind the story. I love the character arcs. I love the world building as well, because it's about these characters who are addicted to anti-grav racing. And I'm not really that big of a fan of anti-gravity racing. I think pod racing is the only thing that comes close. But this one has a lot of emotion behind it, and I love all of the reveals throughout this book. It's just really fantastic, and I can't wait to read what else Colin has in the pipeline. And I've interviewed him about this book as well, so I'll leave a link to that as in the bottom, in the description, I guess. But this was just fantastic. It took me a day to read it. It's so bingeable. If you're a fan of The Expanse, you're gonna love Lethal Circuit. And I say that with my full chest. Like, this is just awesome. But the next one is going to be a Tolkien book, actually. And it's going to be the book here. And this is a first read for me, but this is The Fall of Gondolin, which is recounting the events of the very first elf city, the grandest elf city ever made. And we have characters such as Morgoth in this. We have Shelob's mother, Ungoliant, in this story. We also have Legolas, who shows up, which was awesome. And we just have a lot of really great characters. We have Huron, I believe is his name. And it's just awesome. It's really great. It's Tolkien, so the prose is going to be 10 out of 10. And all these books that I've been talking about 9 out of 10 for me. I just really love them. And this book especially just really filled out a lot of the holes in my knowledge around Middle-earth and sort of how the elves came to Middle-earth. And it explores all of that, and I loved it. It's really nice, too, to finally get some answers about the First Age, because the First Age is a time period in Middle-earth that I know nothing about. And it was so great to finally get that. It was just so wonderful to be able to get all those holes filled in again. And I'm really excited to rewatch the movies here soon, because I know so much more about the lore now that I feel like just rewatching it and also rereading the books next year is just going to be that much better. And it's one of my favorite series of all time, as you know, watching my top 10 fantasy video. But yeah, like, you can't go wrong with Tolkien. You have the same story told about 3 or 4 times in different prose styles, and sort of how the story has evolved from the very first time he wrote it back in the 20s, I believe, and all the way to the final manuscript that he had, that his son compiled and edited and all that. It's just fantastic. And you also have commentary by his son talking about how the story has changed, and he finds all those differences for you and kind of explains it and talks about the ramifications of it. So if you're into that kind of stuff, like, you're gonna love it. So the next one is going to be one that a lot of people will not agree with me on, but this is one of my favorite Dune books outside of the original one. And that's going to be God Emperor of Dune. I absolutely loved it. I'm not going to go into spoilers that much, because there's some heavy spoilers just talking about the synopsis. But there's a significant time gap from book 3 to book 4, which this is book 4. And I absolutely loved the direction that this book went in. I loved the character explorations. I loved the main sort of leader of this book, and sort of exploring how his rule is cemented and how that influences the rest of the universe. Like, it's just really fantastic stuff. And I could not get enough of it. I loved it, and it's a very divisive book. So some people love it, some people hate it. So it's one of those books, so if you end up loving it, you're going to really love it. But I really respect what Frank Herbert did in going with the direction that this book went with, because there's just so many things that he could have done wrong. And in this book, it's a lot more smaller scoped. It's about these 3 characters and sort of how they contribute to the ongoing system that this main ruler has set up in these last many years. I don't want to be specific, but My God, I just loved reading this book. This is probably the last great book in the Dune series, in my opinion. I did not like books 5 and 6. So if you're someone who doesn't want to read all 6 books, I would definitely recommend reading up to book 4. Because book 4 is one of my favorites. It's not the best of the first 4 books, but I still think it's very worthy to be part of that series. So the next book is going to be Philip Chase's While Darkness Gathers. I just reviewed this, I guess, yesterday when this video will come out. But this is one of my favorite reads of this year. It's number 4, so it's top 5. So that's saying a lot because I read over 60 books this year. And this one, it just has all the emotions. It's a significant time gap from book 3 to this one. And everything's just fantastic. I love the coming of age angle of the story, and also maintaining the really interesting character arcs that was going on in the original trilogy with the original characters. And there's just so much to love. I really enjoyed this book. It was very bingeable for me. Again, if you're a Malazan reader, this will definitely scratch your itch with Malazan, because there's just so much to love, and there's so many similarities in terms of the great world building and also the great philosophical discussions that our characters have. And there's also a lot of emotion between the characters that I was really struck by. And it's just fantastic. This is another indie read for me. I read a few more self-published books this year than I usually do, because I have a 90+ TBR. So usually I stick with the traditional publishing, but I'm very happy to have read the Adan series, and especially While Darkness Gathers this year, because my God, that was a 9.25 out of 10 for me. It was just fantastic. I didn't think it would be better than the original trilogy, because I gave the books 2 and 3 9 out of 10s, and I ended up giving this one 9.25, as I said, and I just was not expecting it to hit so well for me as it did, because the pacing really contributes to that, because it's just all gas the entire book. And I love when a book is like that, where it's just, you can't stop reading. And it's just fantastic. Anyone who hasn't read it needs to read it. So number 3 is going to be one that I just read recently, and that's going to be Stephen King's The Wastelands, which is book 3 of The Dark Tower. That's Stephen King's fantasy series, and this one is just so good. This is like one of the best books that I've ever read, and I ended up giving it a 9.5 out of 10, because the prose is fantastic, the world building is fantastic. I love the magic in this series, and I also really love the characters. Every single character just has a really strong voice, and they really propel the story on and on. If you're a fan of the Fallout TV show or Fallout video games, you're going to love The Dark Tower. It's very similar in terms of setting and also the characters and the humor. Stephen King is a very funny writer, and I feel like The Dark Tower is a lot funnier than people give it credit for. And it was just fantastic reading it. I don't think... I already want to reread the series, knowing what I know about the universe of The Dark Tower, because there's so many answers that we get. This book specifically really goes into how all of Stephen King's books intersect with one another, and he gives the mechanics around that. And it's really fantastic. There's a lot of crossover with the book It as well, and It is one of my favorite books by Stephen King because of the really weird ending with the space turtle, and he explains all of that, and it's fantastic. I love the space turtle, but it was just fantastic. I love this book. I couldn't put it down. I ended up reading it in like 2 days, and it's a 300 and maybe 400 page book. Yeah, 422 pages. I read it in like 2 or 3 days. I just could not stop. I can't wait to get to book 4. I'll probably start that in the new year. But my number 2 for this year is going to be the first book I read this year, which was Robin Hobb's Fool's Fate. And my God, Robin Hobb is a very emotional writer in terms of making the viewer or the reader cry a lot. And this book was a book that I couldn't really review at the time I finished it, because I just could not stop crying. Because the character arcs in the story is just so sad, but it is also very beautiful, the way that she talks about the relationships between the characters, and especially the last 100 pages. I just could not see the pages. I could not read because I was just always crying. And like Robin Hobb is the only author to do that to me. And I'm very happy to have met her as well. I've put that all over my Instagram a few times. So if you haven't seen that, please go visit my Instagram and kind of see the pictures and videos I took with her. Because it's just really, like, she is my favorite writer, I think, today. She's definitely top 3 in my opinion. Just the way that the emotions just really gets to you is just fantastic. And I also really love the magic and world building that she produces in this series, because there's always another secret and there's always a way that she can recontextualize everything that you know in the series and make you appreciate it even more, because this series is the 3rd trilogy in the series, and I just finished up the 4th series, which is a 4-book series all about the dragons. I enjoyed it for the most part for what it was, but I'm very excited to get back into the full and the 5th trilogy, or the quadrilogy. I'm not sure exactly. I think it is a trilogy. But I'm very excited to get into that because I know she's just going to rip my heart in shreds, and I'm going to love every second of it. But my favorite book of the year is going to have to be one of my favorite books series of all time, which is Gene Wolfe's Book the New Sun, but the sequel to Book the New Sun, The Earth of the New Sun. This is book 5 of the Book of the New Sun series. Book of the New Sun is not only a 4-book series, but I would also count this book as part of the series because it finishes Severian's character arc. It's all about how he rules as the Autarch, which we know about from the very first chapter of Book of the New Sun. And we get a lot of answers to the mysteries around Book of the New Sun. And my plan for the new year is to go through his Knight and Wizard duology and then reread it. Reread Book of the New Sun because I really, really love that series. I rated it my number 1 in my top 10 fantasy series of all time. I think it's very emotional. It's very complex. There's so many angles that you can get. Every sentence is packed full of information. And it's just awesome. I love it. There's nothing can compare to Gene Wolfe. He is a genius. And maybe that's why his parents called him Gene, because they knew the genius that he was, going to happen to have writing these books. And it's amazing to me that he wrote these books year after year. It wasn't like a George R. R. Martin situation where he had 5 years in between every Book of the New Sun book. It was every year on the dot he released these, and it was just awesome. The world building is just awesome. It takes place on our Earth millions of years in the future. And there's a lot of really fun aliens in this one. A lot of very biblical type of events. So it's just awesome. I can't get enough of Book of the New Sun. I want to read it every day for the rest of my life. But that's not realistic because there's so many great books out there that I want to get to as well. And I'm very excited to see what my reads will be for the next year of 2026. And my God, Gene Wolfe, everyone should read Gene Wolfe. So that's where I'm going to end the video for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the year.